can't really avoid them unless you become a hermit, and that's not really a healthy way to live. So we have to learn how to have good, healthy relationships. But unfortunately, sometimes relationships break, and we have bad experiences. We experience these painful times in our lives. I know I've experienced broken relationship in my own life in the past 2 years. I have a relationship where I've given my all. I've been there 100% of the time. I've given my unwavering support. But unfortunately, the other side, they've constantly left me feeling disappointed. They just haven't come through. We have a week or two of fun and good times together, but then for weeks, I don't get anything out of them. There's no effort, there's no commitment. They don't want to make it work. There's a failure to show up when it counts. And it's been a really tough relationship. Let me show you what I'm talking about. It's been a tough relationship with the Denver Broncos the past 2 years. But seriously, we're not talking about relationships with your favorite sports teams here today. We're going to talk about real relationships with people in our lives, whether it be a work relationship, a marriage relationship, a relationship with kids, church relationships. Inevitably, at some point in time, you're going to experience a broken relationship. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What to do if you're the one who broke the relationship, and we're going to talk about what if somebody else broke the relationship, what to do in those two instances. But one thing, like I said, I know, we need other people. We can't go through life alone, right? It's just not healthy. It's what God called us to have people around us. But when these relationships go broken, what are you supposed to do? And it happens. Like it or not, marriages end. Business partners, they may encounter problems and go their separate ways. Friendships explode in an unhealthy manner. Kids leave sometimes. They never come back home. They never look back. People storm off from churches. I know your church has never had anybody storm off before, but there are churches that actually have that happen, believe it or not. The list goes on of relationships that get broken in our lives. And it happens because we're human beings born with sinful natures. And our sinful natures interact with each other, and something happens, and somebody gets hurt, somebody gets offended, and relationships break. As someone who has experienced broken relationships in my life, I know how hurtful that is, how painful it can be. I know the devastation of broken relationships. However, we can't just lay down at the at the shadow of Mount Broken Relationships and just settle in and just stay there stuck. God has called us into His promised land. He has called us into so much more. We can't just stop because of the pain we've experienced. We can conquer our broken relationships. We can conquer this mountain in our lives. As I said, I've personally dealt with broken relationships in my life. And I'm not just talking about the Broncos. I mean real, live, honest, broken relationships. And because of this, I know that God has the power to heal any relationship. I've experienced in my life. And, He's healed and He's restored my broken relationships. And I know that He can do the same for you. I know deep down inside you feel the same way because that's why you're in this workshop. Because you want that relationship to be healed and restored. And you're here today to learn what can I do to make that happen. So like I said, we're going to look at both sides of the relationship. If you broke it or if somebody else broke it. And we're going to start off by looking at what to do if you've broken a relationship. I've experienced both sides in my life. I've broken relationships, and I've had other people break relationships with me. Let me share a little bit about what I mean with you here today. I grew up with a dad who was an abusive man to our entire family. And like many abusers, one of the tactics he employed to keep his behavior, secret, not let everybody else find out about it, is he would keep my mom and I separated. And as awful as this sounds, my dad, he would lie to me about my mom, tell me things about her that weren't true to keep us separated. But I would believe his lies, and it caused us to have a bad relationship. It's hard for me to say, but I was a horrible son. I was a really bad, horrible son to my mom in my late teenage years, early adult lifetime. And the basic issue was that my dad would lie to me about my mom. And at the same time, he'd lie to her about me. He'd tell me, he would paint pictures of our family that they just weren't true. He would lie about things. And he would blame everything in our lives, no matter what it was, everything he'd blame on my mom. And it was all her fault. And usually he blamed it on her walk with God and the relationship she had with God. When my mom got saved, she said for the first time in her life, she felt like somebody loved her and wanted her. And she went all in on God. And she had she's a Bible-believing, praying mama. Anybody have a mom like that in your life? I was very blessed to have that in my life. But my dad would tell me, all the problems in our family, everything that's going on, the abuse, everything, it's because your mom is such a strong Christian. And she's gone overboard with this whole Jesus thing. She's a fanatic. And, if your mom wasn't so religious, we could go there, we could do this, we could have that. They were often his go-to lines. And looking back now, I could see he was telling me these things as a way to cover up the fact that he didn't have a walk with God, that he was living a hypocritical life, that he was covering over his lies and his abuse and the way he acted. But as a child, I couldn't see that. I didn't get that. And as a result, as a young man, these lies, they caused me to resent my mom, to hate her rules, the way we had to live. And I started believing she'd taken this Jesus thing just way too far. And as a result, I started living a very, very, very casual Christian lifestyle. I mean, I would say, that's kind of like what Pastor Phil said. I believe if I died, I would have went to heaven, but I was not living the life of God. I had a lot of bondages, a lot of struggles in my life, things I had to overcome. And my mom, she never had any trouble telling me the things I had to overcome. She would always be saying, Jamie, you need to work on this. I don't want to see you living this way. I don't want to see you acting this way. And she would come at me all the time like this, and then I would come back at her. One big problem, and you can ask my sister, is if you ever met me, you've met my mom. We were so much alike. Our personalities are so much alike, and that was a lot of the friction between us too. But I would always fight with her. I would argue with her. I'd treat her badly. The weird thing is, though, I would idolize my dad. The man who was abusing me, I would idolize. And then the loving mom I had, I blamed her for the abuse, and I treated her badly. It was twisted inside. And that happens often in abuse. You blame the person who should be helping you, and you idolize and look up to the abuser. It gets twisted. It gets backed up and wrong in your head. And that's what was happening. And because of that, I would treat my mom awful. And all the anger I felt inside towards my dad, she received that anger. And she received that treatment. It all went back to her instead of being pointed towards the one it should have went to. Not that I should have treated my dad bad either. I'm not saying that either. I shouldn't have treated anybody bad. But if you're in your sin, if you're going to treat somebody bad, you think it would be the person abusing you, not the, you know what I'm saying? So I was all twisted up inside. And I ended up becoming an angry, rebellious, smart-mouthed kid. I constantly fought with her. I would argue and fight with her on everything. And now that she's passed away and gone to heaven, and I just look back on it, I think so many times, why couldn't you just let things go? Why did you have to add to her stress and all of her issues by being such a jerk to her? And it's a great source of shame in my life because I still think, why couldn't you just not fight? Why did you have to make things harder than they already were? I was a moody guy. I could set the entire mood of a room just by the way my mood was. If I was in one of my moods, people knew, stay away. I controlled everything. I was a mess. And because of this way, I ended up, as you can figure, destroyed the relationship with me and my mom. And it wasn't until years later where finally I came to the end of myself and I realized I had an experience where in the middle of the night I lost my temper. I turned and I punched a door in my rage. And as soon as I hit that door, it just broke me. The whole story is in the Invincible book. I'm not going to tell the entire story. You can read it in the book. But that night it broke me. I realized, God, I don't like the man that I've become. I don't want to be this man. I need you to work inside of me. And I had to start making changes. And part of the changes I had to make was working on healing the relationship with my mom that I had broken. And in this workshop today, the first half, I'm going to share with you the steps that I took that helped heal our relationship. And I believe that when you implement these same steps into your life, it's going to help heal whatever the relationship is in your life. I believe, you didn't break relationships quickly overnight. It happened over time, and it takes time to heal. And you have to be willing to work through that. And these steps will help you take the steps that you needed to bridge that gap that's developed and help heal the relationship. Okay, so what are the steps? Number one, this seems like such a basic step, but you have to admit that you caused the problem. It seems so easy, yet it's so hard for us to do, right? As guys, we don't like to admit that we're wrong. We don't like to admit we have problems, that we're the reason things are the way they are. But the first step you have to do is you have to accept to do that. I had to finally come to the place where I was wrong. I couldn't keep blaming all my issues and the way I treated other people on the way my dad treated me. I couldn't keep saying my dad was abusive, my dad was this, my dad was that. I had to come to a place where I could say, I'm an abuser, I'm angry, I'm treating other people bad. I had to get my eyes off of my dad and blaming him and start accepting my responsibilities for the things that I had done. And until I did that, I wasn't able to start healing the relationship. Because if I would have tried healing the relationship without admitting I was the cause of the problem, I would have just kept being abusive and treating my mom badly. I had to realize I caused a problem, it started with me, and I had to work to fix it. And like I said, just because my dad was abusive, it did not give me any right in the entire world to be abusive. And I don't know, whatever your broken relationship, whatever somebody's done to you that hurt you, that does not give you an excuse and a right to do that same thing to somebody else. You have to realize the part that you've had in it, admit your problem, and then you can move on to step 2, and that is seek God's forgiveness and God's reconciliation. So like I said, step 2 is asking God to forgive you for destroying the relationship. You have to ask God to transform your life and make you into a new man. You have to let God start working on your heart. You confess, you repent, and you say, God, heal this inside of me, make me into a new man. You know, you may need to ask other people to forgive you, but you have to start with God. You have to let God heal you, change your heart. Okay, like for my life, I had to ask God to forgive me for being abusive. For yours, it may be you have to ask God for lying or cheating or walking away or stealing. Whatever it is that the issue is that you've done, you need to identify it and then ask God to forgive you and allow him to start working on you and changing you and making you into a new man. And then once you start doing that, then you can go on to step 3, which is ask the other person to forgive you. All right, now this is probably the hardest step because it takes the greatest amount of humility. You can get to the place where you admit you caused a problem, and you can keep it between you and God. You can ask God to forgive you. But when you have to go to the other person, that's really the step. You have to put your pride aside. You have to put it all aside and say, you know what? I want to be healed. I want to be changed. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And that takes you being vulnerable, realizing you're broken inside, and you have a humble spirit. But you know, a loving man of God who wants to restore relationships is going to be willing to do that. Okay, so how do we ask for forgiveness? Well, I want to start by showing you this video real quick of how not to ask for forgiveness and how not to apologize.
Hey. Ross, I know you're pissed at me, but we have to talk about this.
Actually, we don't.
Fine, okay, fine. But I gotta say, technically, I didn't even do anything wrong.
What? You didn't do anything wrong?
I said I didn't technically.
Okay, well, let's put aside the fact that you accidentally picked up my grandmother's ring and you accidentally proposed to Rachel.
Well, can't I just stop you right there for a second? When people do this, I don't really know what that means. You were saying?
And I can even understand that you couldn't tell Rachel. But why couldn't you tell me? Huh? You had all day to, and you didn't.
I know, I should have. I'm sorry.
Not using it right, Joe. I'm gonna go.
No, come on, look, Ross, we have to get past this.
Give me the bag.
No, look, I don't know what else to do. I said I'm sorry.
Joey?
Now you should scream at me or curse me or hit me.
I'm not gonna hit you.
Why not? You'll feel better. I'll feel better. And you know you want to? I can see it in your eyes.
No, I don't.
A little bit.
No.
A little bit.
No.
A little bit more. No, hit me.
Give me the bag.
Hit me.
Joey, give me the bag.
Hit me.
Joe, I'm not kidding.
Hit me.
No.
Hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me.
You ducked!
I'm sorry. It was a reflex.
Oh my God, this really hurts.
I couldn't help it. When a fist comes at your face, you duck. Look.
Oh! What is the matter with you? You were supposed to talk! Why didn't you talk? Why don't we talk about this on the way to the hospital?
Good, good. Yeah, maybe while we're there, they can check your reflexes.
Oops.
All right, I'm not a huge fan of the show Friends, but I thought that was a funny clip of how not to ask for forgiveness. Okay, but how should you do? What should you do to ask for forgiveness? Well, the first thing you should do is sit down with the other person, if possible, and talk face-to-face, talk openly, honestly, and humbly with the person. You know, don't be judgmental. Don't be defensive, explaining why you were the one that was right and they were wrong and they need to forgive you. But tell them that you want to ask for forgiveness for mistakes you made in the relationship. Be specific. Don't be vague when you talk to them. Say things like, I lied. I was angry. I was abusive. I said things I shouldn't have. I acted inappropriately. Be specific in what you did wrong. Remember, you're fighting for the relationship, so don't let your pride interfere. You need to be humble and you need to be vulnerable and let them know you really are sorry. They have to see that you're sorrowful and that you're broken inside. You may want to share with them something that you've realized, like from your past. Like for me, I could say, I'm asked for forgiveness. I can include, my dad was abusive to me, and I realized I learned it from him, and now I'm being abusive. But, and listen to this, if you do that, make sure to let them know that you're not saying it as an excuse or as a way to blame someone else. Make sure you let them know that you're saying this to them so that they can see you're serious, that you realized your problem, how it started, and now you're making changes. But don't blame someone else for it. Take full responsibility for your actions and let them know you've repented, you realize you're wrong, and you're making changes, and now you want to restore the relationship with them. Let them know it's not a flip repentance. You're serious about this. You want to change. You want to be a different man. And let them know that you mean it. You're truly repentant and you want to make the changes. And after you do that, number 4, don't demand trust. Rebuild it. That is such a huge thing. You cannot demand the other person start trusting you right away. When I asked my mom to forgive me, she is a Bible-believing, God-fearing woman, and when she said she forgave me, I knew that she meant it, that she had forgiven me, and that was an immediate forgiveness. However, her trust was another thing altogether. It took time. She didn't immediately trust me again. And, I had to work to regain her trust. And honestly, did I like that fact? Or would heck no. I would have preferred everything was better, everything was fixed, she trusted me right away. But life doesn't work that way. You have to give the person time to heal and realize you've changed. I had to prove myself to my mom. She had to see that this was for real, that I was changing. I was becoming something different than I had always been. Same with my sister. My sister, you see how Odessa and I, those who have been coming here for years, you see how we interact, how we minister together? There was years and years of our lives where my sister was scared of me. She would not be alone with me. And it wasn't until God healed me, changed me, and made me to a new man that now she's forgiven me. We can minister and travel everywhere together, and we have the relationship you see now. It didn't used to be that way, but it took time for her to trust that I was becoming a different person. And she could see that I wasn't angry and abusive anymore, and she could see God did a change in my heart. Nothing I did. I'm not a great guy. It's all God. But when she saw the change was there, we can now have the relationship that you all see every year at the Mantour. It's because I proved myself to her. I didn't demand her trust. Instead, I rebuilt it. It's the same thing with my mom. Counselors say it takes an average of 70 years for trust to be restored in a marriage after an affair. Okay, now that's a very specific kind of broken relationship, but it kind of lets you see that there is an element of time. You have to let trust be rebuilt. You can't demand the person trust you right away. You have to rebuild that trust in their lives. It's going to take hard work on your part. It's going to take patience on your part. But if you're serious about restoring your relationship, you have to be willing to take part and do that. And then number 5, you have to also give the person time to heal. Okay, it's important to give them time to trust you again, but you also have to let them heal. You can't expect them to get over it instantly. It's not going to happen. How many here have ever broken an arm or leg or any bone at any point in your life? All right, after you did that and you went to the doctor, When you went to bed that night and you woke up the next day, were you better? No, it takes time, right? It takes time for broken bones to heal. The same is true for broken hearts. It takes time for a broken heart to heal. And when there's been a break in a relationship, especially, this is like, I can get in trouble for saying this, but especially with the relationships with a woman, with women, it's really an emotional, hard thing. You've broken the heart. And you have to give that time to heal. You have to give them space to work through their feelings. And if you don't do that, true healing's not going to come. Okay, so before we move on to what to do if somebody else broke the relationship, let's just look at one more video real quick of how not to apologize.
Hello, Alice. This is me, Ralph. Alice, I'm sorry. I'm miserable without you. Please come back to me, Alice. I apologize for everything I said. I even apologize to your mother. I know she doesn't mean the thing she says, Alice. It's just her nature. She doesn't mean to be mean. She's just born that way. When she says things about your old boyfriends and about the furniture in your apartment, I know that she doesn't mean to get me mad. She's just naturally mean, that's all. When she spilled the beans about the end of the play, I shouldn't have got mad at that. I should have expected it from her. I know how she is. She's never going to be any different, Alice. She's going to be the same all the way, Alice. She's a blood! Hello, Alice.
It's another funny video there. I think that clip makes me laugh whenever I watch it. But let's take a few seconds here. What did he do wrong in that apology, based on what we've learned so far? Just shout out some answers of what you saw that he did wrong. Yes, he kept raising his voice. He got angry. What else? He blamed somebody else. What else? Yes, he did not do it face to face. What else? Yeah, he kept being angry. Did he seem genuine? Do you think his wife was like, oh, I love you so much, come back home now? I mean, do you think that fixed anything? Okay, so what could he have done better then? What should he have done to do a better apology? Yep, what else? Yeah, he should have gone to the person. Yeah. What else?
He could have done more to acknowledge her pain that he caused and how bad he felt because of the pain that he brought on her.
Yes. All right, so you guys are getting, you're seeing what we're talking about here. It's a funny clip, but he totally handled that wrong. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears. We talked about what to do if somebody else what to do if you broke the relationship. We're going to switch gears now and look to what do you do if someone else broke the relationship and you're kind of the one that's kind of left wondering what in the world happened here. I mean, I've ever experienced a relationship with that where something happened like, how did this happen? How did we get here? That's what we're going to talk about now. And, you know, I've experienced this side of the equation as well. Kind of hearing my testimony, you kind of probably figure my dad and I don't have the best of relationships, right? Honestly, as bluntly as I can put it, it's because he wants it that way. I've done all the things we've talked about. I've tried to restore a relationship with my dad, but he doesn't want to change anything. He doesn't see he's ever done anything wrong. He doesn't want to work on anything. And you can't force somebody that doesn't want to heal or change to change. You can't do it. Maybe you find yourself in a similar situation. What are you supposed to do in that case? What do you do when you want things to be fixed, but the other person, they're the one that did something, and you don't know what to do about that? Well, number one, you have to forgive. You have to choose you are going to forgive the person for what they did to you. When it came to forgiving my dad, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not going to pull any punches. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to forgive my dad. I didn't want to, because I had questions in my mind like, you know, what do I do with all the pain inside, all the emotions inside? He doesn't think he did anything wrong. He doesn't want to make the relationship right. What do I do with everything that's going on inside of me? You know, why can't I just forget about this, pretend everything's fine like he does, and pretend everything's okay? How do you fix a relationship with someone who's content to be the way they are and have the relationship the way they are? And how do you forgive someone who isn't sorry and doesn't want to change? What do you do about that? And these questions made me live in so much guilt because I knew I was supposed to forgive, and yet I didn't want to forgive. And I go up and down on this until finally I realized something, and God taught me something that really helped me so much. It was life-changing when I understood what forgiveness really meant, what it really was. First of all, forgiveness is not condoning the other person's behavior as acceptable or no big deal. That is not forgiveness. See, one of the reasons forgiveness was hard for me is I saw it as a get-out-of-jail-free card for anybody who just wanted a fight to go away or wanted a problem to go away. Just say, oh, you forgive me, I was wrong, and move on. They didn't really mean it, just wanted to end it. And I saw it like that. But the truth is, nobody wants to tell somebody in that situation that you're okay with it, right? Somebody says, okay, like that apology. His wife's not going to say, you're right, I forgive you, I see how broken you are. She knew he was not broken at all. To forgive the person, you have to acknowledge that the person hurt you and that they damaged you. You have to admit that they were wrong. An offense occurred, and what they did, it wasn't all right. But you need to forgive anyways. You need to come to the place where you realize, what you did to me was wrong, but I'm going to forgive you anyways. When I realized forgiveness wasn't saying it's okay what you did to me, when I didn't have to say to my dad, the way you abused me, it was okay you did that. It was no problem you did that. When I could realize I could say, you abusing me, that was wrong, but I choose to forgive you anyways. That was life-changing for me. And I could realize that I could stop blaming myself, and I could start just forgiving and moving past it in my heart. Some things to keep in mind about forgiveness. Number one, forgiveness doesn't mean you have to forget. How many have ever heard the saying, forgive and forget? Yeah. No, I don't think it does. I don't believe you can forgive and forget. Okay, like for my example, how do I forget 25 years of my life? I lived it. It was my life. I went through it. I can't just ignore 25 years of my life. But I can forgive. Forgiveness doesn't take away the memory. It takes away the pain. Forgiveness gets you out of the emotional aspect of the memory, how it made you feel, what you're feeling inside. God heals that pain. He takes it away. You go from emotions to fact. It's how I can stand here today and share my testimony, share what's happened and not hurt inside, not stand here and cry and get choked up because of all the pain I feel inside. Because God's healed that pain. I remember what happened, but I don't hurt about it anymore. Does that make any sense? God takes away the pain, but he can't take away the memory. It's part of my history. What's happened in your life, it's part of your history. It happened. If your life was a history book, it would be in the page. You can't rip the page out and pretend it didn't happen. But the pain doesn't have to be there anymore. God can take the pain away, and he can set you free. You don't have to live trapped anymore in that pain. Number two, forgiveness doesn't mean you never bring it up again. I don't believe some people say once you forgive, you can never talk about it again. I don't think that's a healthy way to live. I think when we suppress things inside and we ignore them, that's unhealthy. And I think God wants us to be healthy. I think it's okay to talk about things. I talk about it everywhere I go. Every year I do a Mantour. I share the story of what happened. I talk about it. But the pain's not there anymore, so I can talk about it as fact. But for me to never, ever talk about it again in my life, that means if somebody else could benefit from my testimony, if I never share my testimony, it's never going to help somebody else. Does that make any sense? Instead, I want what happened to me and what I went through to help somebody else going through the same thing to see there is hope, there is freedom. God can set you free. I believe God's called every one of us to share our testimonies. We all have unique testimonies, and we're supposed to share them. And if we just forgive and forget, you never share your testimony. You forget the pain, but you can't forget what God's done in your life. I just believe that. And number three, forgiveness doesn't mean you have to put your heart in the line to be hurt by someone who is unrepentant and unchanged. Okay, just because God commands us to forgive doesn't mean that he allows people to continue hurting us, to continue abusing us, to continue treating us badly, taking our dignity, and just diminishing us. I believe that God is perfectly fine with us establishing boundaries in our relationships. Okay, what do I mean by that? In my life, I have forgiven my dad, and I know I have. he knows I've forgiven him, but I don't let him abuse me any longer. When he goes back into an abusing or a controlling mind frame, I say, no, we're not going there. You cannot act like this. You cannot be doing this. I've forgiven you, but you can't keep doing this over and over. You've got to stop. I'm not accepting this behavior any longer. God is okay with us setting boundaries. As long as we're willing to forgive the person and deal with our heart, there is nothing wrong with setting boundaries in a relationship. It'd be foolish not to, right? It'd be foolish for me to continue letting my dad abuse me. That would be wrong. It would be foolish of me not to forgive my dad. I've done that, but it would be foolish for me to let my dad keep abusing me. God does not expect me as a 41-year-old man who is ministering, doing what God called me to do, living my life, and I've taken the steps to forgive my dad. God does not expect me to let my dad smack me across the face. God would not do that. That would be cruel. God is not a cruel God. God wants us to forgive, but he allows us to establish boundaries. And forgiveness allows that. You can establish boundaries. That make sense? You get what I'm saying here? Okay, so that is that point. Forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself. I honestly believe that. Forgiveness isn't even as much about the other person. It's a gift that you give yourself. Forgiveness is a choice that we make to follow God and choose to forgive someone who hurt us. And it's kind of like when you forgive, it's putting medicine on your injury. I'll show you. I have a wristband on today because I hurt my wrist. I can't really hold the microphone in that hand. My wrist hurts. Putting the wristband on allows me to do this conference today. It's a way to do it. When you forgive, forgiveness is kind of like a wristband. It lets you forgive, heal the problem, and keep doing what you're doing to move forward. It's the medicine you give yourself. It's a way that you allow yourself to heal. Does that make any sense? You understand where we're going here with this? The truth is until you forgive someone, as long as you haven't forgiven someone, you're allowing them to have control over your life. By holding unforgiveness, they're still holding control over your life. When you can say, I know you're wrong, but I forgive you anyway, you're setting yourself free from the power somebody else has on your life. They can't control you any longer. It breaks that power. It lets God open the door for healing to come through and for God to do a miracle in your life. Let's look at this here picture. This kind of be a word picture here. Imagine somebody walked up to you and they just picked up a can of paint and for no reason whatsoever, they threw it right in your face. That is a mean and cruel and awful action that they committed against you, right? We would all agree that person would be wrong to do that, right? Until you wash that pain off, their action is still influencing your life. When you decide, all right, what they did was wrong, but I'm not going to walk around for the rest of my life covered in paint. I'm going to wash this paint off of me. That's when you start to be set free of the actions they committed to you. You understand what I'm saying? It's a way, as long as you're saying, look what they did to me, they had no right to do this to me, and I'm going to let everybody in the world see I have paint on me, they're still controlling you. Their actions are still controlling you. But when you say, all right, that was wrong, but I don't want to walk around with paint anymore. I want to clean up, I want to remove it. It's the same way with forgiveness. When you say, what they did to me was wrong, but I don't want to continue walking around like this. I want their actions to stop influencing me. I want to be set free. Just like paint, removing the paint takes it off of your skin, when you forgive, it takes the pain out of your heart. It's a step you need to take. You just can't walk around covered in paint for the rest of your life because all it's doing is damaging you. Walking around in paint is not doing anything to damage the person who threw the paint. It's only making you look ridiculous and damaging you. When you forgive and take that pain off, it sets you free. When you forgive somebody else, it sets you free from the control they have on your life. Okay, number 2, what's the second thing to do in a broken relationship? You need to pray for them. Okay, you need to begin to pray for the person. Now, don't pray a prayer like this. Look at this here picture. Don't pray, God, grant me the serenity to accept the stupid people as they are, the courage to maintain self-control, and the wisdom to know that if I act on it, I will end up in jail. All right? That's not a good prayer to pray. Don't be praying the God get them prayers. Now, I will tell you, your first tendency when somebody hurts you, it's going to be to pray to God get them prayers. It's human nature. I had a situation in my life. Dustin and I had some really good friends. Like, we were really close with them. When they went on vacation, we would stay with their kids. We'd watch their kids for them. We did a lot of stuff together. We traveled together. We were really good friends with this couple. And but something happened, and I don't remember what it was anymore, but they got angry with us. And what they did is they took emails that we had sent back and forth with them. They actually edited these emails, changed things, printed them out, and took the emails to authority figures in our lives to try and get us in trouble. Now, over time, it was proven that it was lies. What they're being accused of wasn't true. We were completely vindicated. But how many know that pretty much destroyed that relationship? We could not believe how they could stab us in the back like that, and it hurt. And I will be honest with you, and I will stand here and say, when I would pray for them, I was not praying nice stuff. I was praying, no, God, do you see what they did? God, you need to judge them. You need to get them. You cannot let them get away with what they did to us. And when I was praying prayers like that, I wasn't healing. I was not getting over my anger and my feeling of betrayal. And then we went to a church service, and the pastor actually spoke on when somebody hurts you, you need to forgive them, and you need to pray for them. Pray prayers of blessing. And I felt so convicted, and Dessa felt so convicted. We started just praying good for these people, praying blessings over them, praying God would bless their lives, that He would prosper them, that He would help them. And I'll be honest with you, it really changed my heart. When you pray good for somebody, you can't hate them at the same time. It's just not possible. You can't be praying good for somebody and feeling hatred. God, when you start praying over them, it changes your heart. It really does. And I know it sounds like, Jamie, this is so stupid. It's not going to make a difference. I'm sitting here today telling you it makes a difference. When you start praying for them, praying blessings on them, praying for God to do good things from their lives, it will change inside of you. And then it takes us to number 3. It goes kind of along the same lines. Do something nice for the person. Luke 6:27-34 says, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If they take your coat, give them your shirt as well. Give to everyone who asks, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, don't demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that? Even sinners do that. If you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full." Listen to this. Love your enemies. Do good to them, and lend to them without expecting anything back. Then your reward will be great. You'll be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful as your Father is merciful. All right, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you, after my mom passed away, my first initial reaction was not to do good to my dad. My honest reaction was, I'm done with my dad. Maybe I'll send him a Christmas card, maybe not. My grief was so strong, and I was like, I'm done. He's out of my life. But God spoke to me and said, no, Jamie, he's not out of your life. You need to show your dad my love. And God required that my dad actually, he lives with us. He lives in our house. He's changed a little, but he hasn't changed all that much. But God required of us to show him God's love. And we do good for him. We do good things like cooking for him, do his laundry, take him places, taking care of him. By just showing him God's love, showing the love of Christ, it has helped us heal. But not only does it help us heal, it's done good in my dad as well. I honestly believe it's the reason my dad started going back to church. The fact that we did not give up on him. The fact that we surrendered and said, all right, God, this is going to be really hard. This is going to hurt, but we will do what you're telling us to do and show my dad love and forgiveness. And he started going back to church. He started going to his church's men's group. And they've been holding him accountable. And it's just been really good for him. I honestly believe because of the decision we made, that kind of contributed to him going back to church. Not because we did it, because through the power of God, he saw the power of God that made a difference in his life. And you know, God can take even the smallest act of doing something nice for somebody, even if it's something like buying them a cup of coffee or just sending them a nice note, somebody who's done something bad to you, that doing good to them, it will help you heal. I know that it will. I've seen it. I've seen firsthand the power of just following what the Bible said. Jesus said, do good to those who despitefully use you. If the Bible says it, he means it, and he's going to do what he says. It will help heal your heart. He'll do it. And like I said, maybe what God's going to ask you to do is going to be even more dramatic what he asked us to do. Maybe it'll be less. But whatever he lays on your heart to do good for somebody, obey. And that will help you forgive. And it will help restore the relationship. Guys, I understand that broken relationships are painful. I get that. I've experienced them. I've shared some of them with you this morning. But I also know that our God is bigger than any broken relationship. He can heal it if we are willing to move past it and do what we need to do on our part to do the work to heal those relationships. He will do it. No matter if you're the one who broke the relationship or someone else broke that relationship. Whatever it is, you don't have to stay stuck there any longer. God can help you climb that mountain, and he can give you victory. But the big but here is you have to be willing to take those steps and start climbing. We've laid out the steps for you here today, but are you willing? It's a choice you have to make. Are you willing to start taking those steps, applying to your life, and start climbing that mountain? Okay, so as we get ready to close here today, just really quickly, we're almost out of time. I just want to point out on the back of the worksheet, we actually have some questions. I was hoping we'd have time to do it here, but we're not going to have time. But take that back home with you. Start working on it with God. Answer those questions. They're very simple steps. Like the first question is, what's the relationship that's broken in your life? That's an easy question to answer, right? You know what it is. Just write it down so you have it in front of you and start working through it. And then when you're going to come to a point where you have to decide, did you break the relationship or did somebody else? And then there's a section on what to do. If you broke it, a section if somebody else broke it. Just work through that. Take it seriously. And I know that God can heal whatever your relationship is. So take that handout, take it with you, work through it, and allow God to do a work inside of your heart. So as we wrap up here, I just want to say a real quick prayer for all you guys here. Father, I just thank you for every man who came to this workshop today. Father, I can see by the fact that they came, that they have something in their life, a relationship they want healed. Father, I don't know what that relationship is, and Father, I don't need to know what it is because you know and they know. They know what caused it, how it happened, and what steps that they can take, whether it be to heal the relationship from actions they've taken or how to heal their heart from things people have done to them. Father, let this workshop just give them something that they can take home with them and start working. And Father, let them climb and someday stand on top of Mount Broken Relationships and say, thank you, Father, for healing this relationship and setting us free. Because that's your will, Father, healing and restoration. Bless every man here. Father, bless this closing session. And we're going to start soon. In Jesus' name, and everybody says, Amen. Thank you guys so much for coming out.